Good morning. I will start the meeting again. Welcome to the first of the Planning and Transport Policy Subcommittee of the Executive of Somerset Council here today in Taunton. My name's Ros Wyke. I will be chairing the meeting today, and I'm the lead member for Economic Development, Planning and Assets. I have a number of people in the room, and we have members online and officers and also members of the public. So welcome everyone. We will be running this as a hybrid meeting, and we will have the number of the decision makers, as it is a formal meeting of the council, in the room for making decisions, along with a number of officers to help with the process. Members of the public and partners can observe the meeting remotely, and there may be some slight delay between agenda items, but we'll try and move this forward. The agenda pack papers available not only on ModGov, but directly from the council's website, which is a link which has gone to all members, and for members of the public, they can go online to Somerset Council and you can see the link across from this for this subcommittee. Could people, when they speak, please recognise that they need to say clearly who they are and their role, so that members listening to the meeting can identify who's speaking. And I will also advise you all that the meeting is being recorded for minutes and for future access by both members of the public and members. And finally, the agenda can be viewed electronically, and I've requested that when possible we refer to the page numbers that are publicised in the agenda pack to assist everybody with identifying the data being discussed. I move on to the first item on the agenda, apologies, and do we have any?
No, Chair, we don't.
Okay, thank you for that. And declarations of interest over and above what is stated on the website in terms of individual members and their parish and town council membership. Do we have any declaration of interest? Right, on to public question time. And I'm aware of two questions. One of them has been pre-circulated, and this is from David Ridgewell. Is David with us online this morning? I think he is. David, welcome to the meeting. In the absence of the portfolio holder for transport, I'm happy to give some responses to your questions, but first of all, do you want to say anything? David, I'm afraid we can't hear you. Can we check that we can hear members online, please?
Hello, could anybody else try to speak so we can see if we can hear you in the room, please?
Andre Sistini from Somerset East. Can you hear me?
Thank you, Andre. Yes, we can. Thank you.
So in the absence, David, of your unable to hear you, I will summarise the questions and you'll be given a written response. The first question is asking about the future operating model for bus shelter maintenance and cleaning. And the question is, I think there are a number of duties in response to that, and the transport team are looking at how they can be discharged. It's obviously one of the areas we'll be picking up with the wider town council and city activities. But for the moment, we do recognise that there is a need to continue the work of the former district councils in that area. The second question is that you're looking for a proposal. There's no specific proposal to reduce the cost of running the county bus network. The council is not responsible for running the rail or coach network within the county. But I think we'll elaborate more on school transport and how we're running those services, and also the public services. And of course, as you are aware, we've been quite successful this year in terms of the Bus It campaign and driving up demand, and we'll continue to recognise that. And I will personally note that the 126 service coming from the City of Wells to Weston-super-Mare has now been confirmed as a new service in the new year. It will go to Weston. We're working with North Somerset Council on that, and the communities between particularly Wells and Cheddar are really delighted to see that. But there are a number of other services across the county which will give you some more information in writing. I'm afraid I'm not too close to some of the detail in the absence of the portfolio holder. And your third question about the delay in reopening the Taunton bus station as a mobility hub. The project is progressing well, though there are a number of processes, and it's unfortunate it's taken longer than anticipated when we bid for funds to complete the project. English Heritage are supportive of the scheme and were working with us to progress it. We have open dialogue with stakeholders and operators regarding income generation opportunities and whether access charges will apply. We do not consider there's any risk to the funding we have, and are regularly updating the Department for Transport on progress and any changes to the predicted delivery timescales. Okay, I think that is all I can add at this stage, but you will get a written answer in due course. And I'm sorry we haven't been able to hear you this morning, David. Right, we'll now move on to a late question, which I have given permission for, but I think it's recognised that as it was this morning, we will be unable to give you a detailed response. So the gentleman who wishes to ask the question, if you'd like to go to the front, and can you please introduce yourself?
Green. Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to ask the question this morning. I'm Roger Foxwell. I come from Exmoor. I'm a local resident up there on top of Exmoor. I'm also on the parish council for Cupcombe. I'd like to know, under the highways part of this, as to how this consultation, which goes out in the new year, is going to involve the LCNs, because as you're well aware, we've got a new structure in Somerset now with these LCNs. It would give an opportunity for the LCNs across Somerset to have more of a bite, you know, in feeding in to highways. So up on top of Exmoor, we've had a highways pilot scheme. We've learned a lot. The local community up there have learned a lot. There's lots of lessons to be learned in saving money from the point of view of highways. We're currently going to have a road closure in January for 4 months. And that cost of that road repair is going to be in excess of £1 million. And so, you know, we need to learn lessons by routine maintenance across the whole of Somerset to save money. And the other thing, which is obviously has come about recently, is devolution. Well, a letter has come from the county, from Bill, as to what services, you know, perhaps could be undertaken by town and parish councils and other across the county, Well, I can tell you for a fact that we're already paying, the local parish council already pay for the bus shelter to be maintained, for play equipment to be maintained, open acts and for open areas for children to play in. Toilets, we already pay for those in our parish. So, you know, moving forward, yes, we all need to work together, but devolution, well, that needs a lot of discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll get a more formal response. I don't know, do you want to say anything at this stage? I really appreciate you coming to the meeting today and highlighting the project in the west of the county, and certainly there are lessons to be learned from your ongoing project. But LCNs are a broader piece, and I will ask the leader if he wishes to say anything at this stage.
Yep, thank you so much for your question and for your comments. I've been highly impressed by the work of the pilot scheme on Exmoor. I think there are many lessons that will be applicable for other areas of the county, particularly the more rural areas. Yes, very aware that the asset and service devolution isn't a new thing. When I was chair of North Petherton Town Council, we took on the library, we took on running the youth club. We started running the public toilets. We brought the major playing field off the district council and maintain that. So yeah, lots and lots of parish and town councils already do a lot of that work, and I hope more of it will carry on and we can work in partnership successfully to deliver for our residents throughout Somerset. So thank you so much for your question and your thoughtful comments.
Thank you. Right, I have no other revised questions, so we'll now move on to item 4 on the agenda, and that is the looking at the Planning and Transport Policies Subcommittee. And I would ask Alison Blom-Cooper as the officer to introduce this, and particularly the forward plan, which is in the agenda pack.
Thank you, Chair. And the forward plan is currently on pages 9 to 10 of the agenda pack. We have a number of amendments that we wish to make to that forward plan. You'll hear later on in the agenda an update on where we have with work on the Mendip local plan. And for the reasons that you'll hear later, we need to put that item back onto the agenda for the February meeting, please. And just also to note that the item on SIL for the 25th of January meeting should be one item, not as itemised there, two separate papers. In addition, we are hoping to bring the Nexus LDO and an update on that to the February meeting. So that should go down as provisional, but those are the changes that we wish to make, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any questions of Alison? Councillor Darch.
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to see that there are a number of neighbourhood plans on the forward plan coming forward. Really good to see communities working hard. I know from my community there's a tremendous amount of work involved in those. So just looking at the time scale, I'm not that familiar with the process of neighbourhood plans, but assuming they need to be passed at full council, don't they? They don't. And my question really will this timescale enable them to go ahead and have their referenda during the spring and summer? Because obviously the turnout in the winter in these communities is much lower, really. Thank you.
So we're bound by very strict timetables in terms of neighbourhood planning. We've been advised by governance and legal that we can make the plans here at this policy exec subcommittee. So the items that are set down there are when they've come to be made, plans are coming to be made. So that is after the referendum. So we have a very strict timetable as to how quickly you have to have the referendum after it's been through the independent examination process and we've got the report. And then we have 8 weeks from the date of the referendum to make the plan, and that's set down in regulation. So that's the timetable. They're due to come in February because the referendums are essentially being held in January.
Thank you. That's actually quite interesting, and maybe we should make it clearer to people that the timescale when they submit for examination actually will determine when the referendum is held. I'm not sure neighbourhood groups have picked that one up.
Yeah, it's really when the inspector or the independent examiner reports. So of course we don't, we never know when exactly that's going to be.
So it is a bit of a lottery. Okay, thank you for that. Question, Councillor Wakefield.
Really, all I wanted to ask was, would it be appropriate for this committee to have updates on what's happening with the county-wide plan? I know there's something about minerals in there, which may be the first stage, but I just think that there should be some forum in which the public can hear how that's going, and I don't know whether this is the correct one or not.
Chair would be happy to bring reports at a regular interval to update on where we are with the work on the local plan.
Thank you. I think that's a good suggestion. Thank you. Any questions from anyone else online or in the room? Otherwise, I believe, noting the changes, the committee is asked to note this report. Okay, thank you. Can we make sure the amendments are quite clear on the minutes so that we know where we go? Right, we'll move on to item 5, the local transport plan, the programme timescales and governance. And I ask Mike O'Dowd-Jones, or is it going to be Kim Hawes who's going to respond? Mike, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll introduce this item. I've got my colleagues Kim Hawes and Matthew Prince on the line to answer any detailed questions if need be. I'll just give you a brief introduction to the paper, which is on page 11 of the papers. So the council has a duty to publish a local transport plan. Ours was last fully updated in around 2011. We have since developed various thematic strategies, such as our bus service improvement plan, for instance, since then. So it's not entirely out of date, but it is definitely due a thorough refresh. So the government typically issues guidance on these plans, and we've been waiting for the guidance for this iteration of the plan for quite some time from government. It will be quite a different plan, focused more on carbon reduction as its key theme. So the government has worked up guidance on this, but hasn't published it, I think, because of I guess political challenges and differences of opinion, perhaps at the top, about exactly what to do going forward. So we are waiting, but I think the paper really suggests that we carry on preparing a plan because we need one for our own purposes. And whilst we don't know what the final guidance will look like, we've got a pretty good understanding of what the guidance might be. So we've got plenty to be working on. The expectation from the Department for Transport is that we should have something available for summer next year to inform the spending review for post 2025. They're definitely looking for evidence of the types of interventions that local authorities need to make to reduce carbon emissions from transport, and to try and put some costs to that for the Treasury. So that's kind of the underlying purpose of this this evidence base at the moment. We're looking to integrate the local plan work and the local transport plan work much more fully than we have done previously, now that we're a unitary authority. So we're doing some really good joint work on this. The local transport plan will come first in terms of timescales, and will provide a really good evidence base to inform some of the local plan discussions around the nature and shape of development going forward and how that impacts on transport movement. So the paper sets out an overarching programme, timeline for the work, and an approach to governance. the broad plan is to have an overarching vision, which we can publish fairly shortly, coming from a kind of people and place perspective, in terms of the impact of transport on people and place. And then moving towards a more formal consultation in the spring of next year. And I hear the question about LCNs, and I'm sure we can factor in LCNs into the consultation process, noting that LCNs will want to do things on a case-by-case basis. You know, the point of LCNs, isn't it, is to enable them to shape how they do things. So we'll obviously be very happy to have conversations with LCNs and fit into their programs. I must note a risk around capacity within that, though, because we do have a small team, and it will probably get smaller next year. So we do need to be developing something appropriate in terms of the capacity that we've got. And then we will be preparing an evidence base for government in the summer, largely around carbon emissions and costs of interventions to tackle the carbon challenges that we've got. And then we'll be moving towards adoption of a plan in winter of 24 and maybe spring 25, depending on how far we get and how far the guidance has come from government. So the only risk to flag up is really there might be a potential change in approach from government and a potential change in guidance, but I feel that the risk of not having a plan outweighs the risk of the guidance potentially changing slightly. So that's really why I'm recommending that we move forward on this. I think that's all I wanted to say by way of an introduction. Obviously, me and the team are here to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
He is online if you want to bring him in.
Ah, fine, thank you. The portfolio holder is with us today. Mike Rigby, do you want to say anything about this plan?
No, I've nothing to add at this stage. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions? I have a couple, but first of all, Councillor Darch.
Thank you, Chair. I'm kind of really pleased to see this kind of much more integrated approach where we're kind of linking kind of planning and almost everything else that is relevant. This is one of the gains of us being one authority, really, where kind of planning was separate. So I really welcome that. I am a bit concerned, and I know there's nothing that we can do about it, that this is clearly really, really important because it's going to inform the Treasury funding that we receive going forward, and yet we haven't got the government guidance yet to do it. So that is a bit of a worry, but I get that this is kind of going to be a high level vision document, and we should be able to get on with that and then I guess amend it according to the guidance when it comes. I'm really pleased as well to see that kind of carbon reduction is going to be an important factor in this. I seem to remember that at one time the government funding was going to be linked to carbon reduction, and it sounds like that is no longer the case, but they are still very kind of interested in that as a kind of a key part. So my question really is around the local. So on point 16, adopting a place-based approach to Somerset's local transport plan and local plan development, which recognises that a one-size-fits-all strategy does not work for our unique communities across the country. And I think that probably kind of fits in with LCNs and the neighbourhood plans. And my question was how local is local? Is it district? Is it LCN? Is it town and parish? Or is it kind of all of those? Thank you. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. So I think the way we're working on this at the moment is a kind of place typology approach, so that there are a number of places across Somerset which operate functionally in a pretty similar way. Obviously, no place is exactly the same, but the types of issues that people face and the types of transport interventions that might work in certain places will be similar to, according to the type of place. So you've got very large urban areas with certain types of solution, and you've got smaller market towns and villages, and they've all got slightly different issues. So we're working on that kind of basis. We've divided up the county into different types of place, and we'll be working on interventions for those types of places. I think it's going to still be a fairly strategic plan, so it will say these are broadly the interventions that we feel will work, and we'll try and put a cost to that. There will then inevitably be much more work in the future when we actually have more financial resource coming in. We can actually say, actually, for this particular town or village, actually what we need to do now is this specifically. But at this stage, it's really the typology and the type of intervention that will work in each place.
Okay, any other questions while people are thinking? I have one under 15 where you refer to the LC whips and the funding. Now, I don't know how much we've inherited from the former district councils, but I'm aware there are quite a number of LC whips already in place. But do you have a feel as to the quantum of them in comparison to what we need to fund?
Yeah, so we have we've got a number of those plans, some of which the county council developed more on the larger towns, and some of which the district councils have started to develop in more of a rural context. And obviously in the former Mendip area, that there are a number of more rural and interurban type solutions coming through. So we're working at the moment to sort of integrate that into an overall network for the county. We are also commissioning further work looking at how to roll that out to smaller settlements and to develop some toolkits for some more of the interurban stuff as well and more of the rural solutions. So I don't know whether, Matthew, whether you've got any more to add to that at the moment, just in terms of the overarching plan for that.
I think you're on mute.
You're on mute, Matthew.
Sorry about that. I did push the microphone button, but it decided to ignore me. Yes, thank you, Mike. Just to let you know is that we recently, well, last year we did a sort of report back to Active Travel England, and at that stage we had about 50% of our population covered by an LC whip of some size. So some have been completed and some were in train. We have obviously Mendip have identified a much wider LC whip with some connecting principles, and we have just recently commissioned a much sort of larger Somerset style based on the Mendip plan. It's not traditionally an LC whip, but it's been referred to as an LC whip because it's using some of the ways that we would develop the connectivities and what infrastructure might be needed on a much more Somerset wide, so enabling that sort of thing. So where we haven't got specific ones, they should actually be covered under some policy or infrastructure plan coming forward, and then we're working on various other things to ensure any of the gaps in rural areas, how people can progress things from a parish. So in terms of us and the local transport plan, we're in a very strong position, I feel, for having enough of a planning coverage of local cycling and walking infrastructure.
Thank you for that. And so just for clarity, what sort of timescale are you looking at in terms of actually having a county-wide appraisal of the situation?
We've started the commission work on that, and it will, because of the funding pot that's coming from that, and we're still working things through with Active Travel England, but the funding itself would had to be used by the end of next financial year, so that would be March 25. So relatively quickly, and we will build a sort of a structure to that based on how it interacts with the current plans that we've got. So it's relatively quickly. The other ones that are still sort of going through the process, so places like Chard, Highbridge, Wellington, Burnham, are moving forward as the town council, working with the town council, because it's obviously a relationship. It can't just be we tell them that it's a cooperation event. So they are moving forward.
Thank you. I look forward to seeing them. Looking at the 5 market towns in Mendip, the former district council, the LC whips there really do help inform both planning and ongoing development. So the sooner we have those in place to actually help our planning colleagues, the better. So I look forward to the end of March 25 at the latest. Thank you very much indeed for that. Any other questions on this plan at this stage? Otherwise, we're being asked to do 2 things, I believe. One is to improve the timescale, and I think that is certainly outlined in Appendix A, and then improve the governance process set up in Appendix B. Any further thoughts on that, or are people happy to receive these recommendations? Okay, I got nods in the room. I think we can say that members support those recommendations. Thank you very much indeed, everyone. Right, and thank you, Mike and your colleagues, for producing this paper. As we all recognise, this is the start of a journey, but it's one which we do need. Thank you. Right, we'll then move on to item 6, which is the Mendip Local Plan, Part 2, Site Allocation Review. Gosh, this seems to be forever with us. Thank you. And I see we have Andre Sestini with us to introduce the item. Over to you, Andre.
Yeah, yes, good morning, members. I'm Andre Sestini. I'm a Principal Planning Policy Officer, largely doing work in Somerset East area, so that includes the Mendip Local Plan, for those who don't know me. I'm going to just offer a very brief update. Members will be aware we were hoping to bring a report and actually a consultation document to you at this meeting, and I want to kind of briefly outline the work that we've been doing on the plan review since it was agreed as a report that we had to update it at the July executive, and also just briefly cover why you haven't got a report. So just to go back into the background very briefly, at executive committee in July, members might recall that we agreed to update the Mendip Local Plan specifically because it's covered by an order handed down as a result of a judicial review to look at some additional sites and effectively reconsider sites that have been quashed from the plan, and then come to a view about whether they should be reinstated or look at alternative sites. And that was all done to a timetable which was specified by the High Court. So since that time, we have done quite a lot of work on the plan, but we haven't been able to conclude all those elements to bring it to you for this meeting in December. Now, in advance of that, because we're looking at a court order, we've had to make an application to the court to change the timetable, which he originally specified. And to be fair, we did have some concerns with that timetable at the time and made provision originally for us to go back and seek to vary the order if we needed to do so if circumstances changed. So that's what's happened, and essentially, rather than bring a written report to you, we've prioritised making sure that we have an application in with the court before the deadline. In terms of the work that's been undertaken, we promised essentially that we would undertake a call for sites, since the local plan the Mendip area hadn't been part of a continuous call for sites. So we've almost started afresh looking at what sites are available in order to inform this update. And it's fair to say that one of the reasons that things have become delayed from the original programme is they had quite a lot more sites than were expected. In fact, almost as many sites as we had right at the beginning of Local Plan Part 2. So more than 50 completely new sites promoted for housing development, which have been considered. And overall, I think we had about 140 submissions in total, just taken time to review, and part of that's also related to the consultation system. We gave promoters the opportunity to put their own sites in with us. What we found is they're not as good as drawing as some of our officers are, and we've had to redigitize quite a lot of the maps to make sure we've got a consistent evidence base. So that's added a bit to the delays in taking the programme through to get to a December deadline. We have, I think, about 140 of those sites have been assessed in detail, and clearly as a new authority, we've now had the advantage of being able to go to our transport and flood authority, minerals and waste colleagues to get detailed comments on these sites. So we've really gone through quite a thorough process, and also engaged internally and also with the Somerset East members who had an opportunity to look at these sites as we were progressing our assessments. As I said, there's a bit of work still to do, including the consultation report and also the sustainability appraisal and habitat regulations assessment. And we know that's, I mean, we know obviously there are particular pressures internally on our ecology team to undertake that work because they've got BNG and phosphates. But overall, I think 90% of the sites that we've assessed are either have some impact on an SSSI, so it's quite a significant factor we need to get right before we bring it out for consultation. And the consultation that will be coming once the document's approved in February, because it's identifying specific sites, we have to go through those regulatory steps of including sustainability appraisal and the habitat assessment. I think those are the main points I wanted to get across. We've added that we will be bringing that to the next meeting in the middle of February, and our aim would be to get the public consultation out as soon as practicable after that. So that'll be a 6-week consultation with widespread notification, and then we've given ourselves effectively 3 months from that date to submit the final version of the plan, which goes out to a formal consultation before being submitted to the planning inspectorate in the autumn. I think the only other thing I'll mention is that in our local development scheme, we agreed that this is very much a narrow exercise just to deal with the issues identified by the court. It is not the start of the Somerset plan, and that'll be a much wider exercise to follow. Thank you very much. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre. Just for clarity for everyone, this is a verbal update. There are no papers related to this item in case anyone was looking for them. And thank you for that update. Can I just say before I invite people to ask questions that I attended 2 workshops with all the local members within Mendip, looking at each of the individual put forward and having opportunity to ask questions and give local intelligence. And I just commend that. That was a really helpful open exercise, and we need to think about how we do that going forward. So thank you for you and your team's efforts to make sure this is as transparent as possible within the context of a response to the court requests for a review of the site allocations. Right, first of all, any questions from the room? Bill? Councillor Revin?
Thank you, Ros, Councillor White. Andre, thank you so much for your verbal update. Can I just check whether there was any additional cost to us having to go back to the High Court to have the deadline extended, and do we have a new date as yet?
Andre, I'll pick it up. We don't know the exact cost of going back to the High Court. Obviously, we've had to take council's opinion to do that and to make the application on our behalf. It will depend to some extent whether we have to go through a hearing or whether it's done on the papers as to what the overall cost will be.
Thank you. I'll look forward to hearing more detail on that. We talked about consultation with local members, which is absolutely brilliant. Thank you. Just wondering whether once we get to the consultation phase, what we're planning to do with city, town and parish councils and our local community networks.
We will be bringing that obviously to you as part of the consultation document to the next meeting, as Andre's described. Obviously, we're bound by what we set out in our statement of community involvement as to how we will involve members of the public, stakeholders, etc. If you're asking us specifically to make proposals for that, happy to take that away and come back to you.
Yes. I think what we have here is the opportunity to set out how we will be working with local members, city, town, parish councils, the LCN stakeholders, as we move into producing the overall Somerset local plan in the future. We've heard earlier about the success of the pilot with on Exmoor with highways. I just think we're in this situation, so let's use it as a pilot for how we are going to engage for the new local plan. I think that's what I would like to see, and if we can get lessons that we can take in to the new process that makes that more consultative and collaborative, that would be very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I suggest that the agreed public consultation, and you'll correct me on the right name of that paper, is shared again with members and see whether or not there is anything in there we would like to enhance or improve, given we now have the development of the LCNs and the document we agreed was some time ago, and we may be an opportunity to revisit if necessary. I realise that there is always a balance between a legal document and then the work, how our working practice, and it might be worth just having a think about how we do that. But I'll leave that with you to come back. Thank you. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'm not sure as such we have any recommendations other than we look to hear and see the report from you, Andre, in February, and also the information around the consultation process for later in the year. Okay, so are people content with that? Great, thank you very much indeed for that. And Andre, I recognise that you and your members have had to work flat out to get anywhere near the really onerous timescale the courts have set us, and therefore I think we always recognised it was tight, but with the number of proposals it's been, I know that there's had to be redeployment of people from elsewhere in the county to support your team, so congratulations on getting so far, and hopefully we're now in a position where we can be quite clear with the courts what we can do and when. Thank you for that. Any other thoughts? Otherwise, I'm very happy to complete this item, and I believe that we have no other items here today. So thank you very much indeed, everyone who's online with us, and I will look forward to our next meeting in due course. Thank you, everyone. Cheers.